The cosmic dance of mind and matter. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this fascinating relationship between quantum physics and consciousness. It really gets to you when you start diving into it. When quantum mechanics came along, it completely changed how we understand reality. I love what John Wheeler said. No phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. Think about that for a second. Your act of looking at something might actually bring it into being in some way. And Wheeler wasn't alone. Richard Conn Henry wrote in Nature that our universe is mental at its core, not physical. Even Max Planck, who started the whole quantum revolution, believed that all matter comes from a conscious and intelligent mind. These aren't fringe thinkers. These are brilliant scientists who saw something profound in the nature of reality. The mystery of consciousness itself is just as compelling. As David Chalmers puts it, there's nothing that we know more intimately than conscious experience, but nothing that is harder to explain. We've mapped the brain in incredible detail, but why we have this rich inner life, this subjective experience, that's the real puzzle. This hard problem suggests that consciousness might be more fundamental than we think. I find the pineal gland particularly interesting. It's this small organ deep in your brain that responds to light and regulates your sleep cycles. In some animals, it actually forms a literal third eye that can detect light. Descartes called it the seat of the soul, where the physical and spiritual worlds meet. Eastern traditions connect it to the third eye chakra, spiritual insight and illumination. There's even research suggesting it might produce DMT naturally in our brains. Isn't it remarkable how this light-sensitive structure parallels the idea of an inner light of awareness? When we look at the cosmos, the mysteries only deepen. The Big Bang Theory describes how the universe expanded, but what caused it in the first place? That initial moment remains shrouded in mystery. Physics can trace things back to a tiny fraction of a second after creation, but the question of why there's something rather than nothing, that's the first cause that science hasn't answered. And get this, about 95% of our universe is invisible and unexplained. Dark matter and dark energy make up the vast majority of everything, yet we don't really know what they are. Despite decades of research, these cosmic components remain elusive. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that most of reality is still beyond our understanding. The fine-tuning of the universe is equally mind-blowing. Those basic constants of physics seem calibrated just right for life to exist. If the strong nuclear force were slightly different, carbon atoms wouldn't form properly. If gravity varied a bit, stars couldn't create the elements we need. These Goldilocks conditions make you wonder, is it just incredible luck, countless universes with different settings, or perhaps something more intentional? Even our most ambitious scientific frameworks have their limits. String theory was supposed to be the theory of everything, with tiny vibrating strings as the building blocks of reality. But decades later, it remains unproven. We can't test it with current technology. This reminds us that science itself has boundaries, and sometimes multiple ideas can exist in the spaces where evidence is lacking. I love seeing connections between ancient wisdom and modern science. Jesus taught that the kingdom of God is within you, suggesting divine reality isn't somewhere out there, but accessible within consciousness. If consciousness is fundamental, as some quantum theorists suggest, then perhaps what we experience externally is deeply connected to what's within us. Both perspectives hint that ultimate reality might be discovered through the mind. Have you seen Michelangelo's creation of Adam? Researchers have noticed that the shape surrounding God and the angels perfectly outlines a human brain. Since Michelangelo studied anatomy, this was likely intentional, suggesting that consciousness itself is the divine gift. God's finger approaching atoms without touching resembles a neural synapse firing. It's a beautiful integration of science and spirituality. There are so many areas where science reaches its current limits. We don't know exactly how life first formed from non-living chemicals. The true nature of time and space at quantum scales remains elusive. We lack a unified theory connecting quantum physics with gravity. These aren't failures of science, but frontiers that keep expanding. These persistent mysteries challenge strict materialism, the idea that science will eventually explain everything through particles and forces alone. Some aspects of existence might not yield to purely material explanations because they're not purely material in nature. The hard problem of consciousness, the fine-tuning of the cosmos, the origin of life, these might be hints that reality encompasses more than blind particles, perhaps pointing to an underlying purpose or principle. This is where science and faith can have a meaningful conversation. Science reveals mechanisms, while faith and philosophy explore meaning and purpose. By acknowledging both what we know and what remains mysterious, we create space for both material and transcendent perspectives. In this search for understanding, science and spirituality can be partners rather than opponents. As Shakespeare wrote, "There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy." That sense of wonder is what connects the scientific and spiritual impulses in all of us.